We're live. Hello once again. My name's Steve Jaguar.
And I'm his co-host, Mike Foster.
Once again, welcome to your cloud native video newsletter for an impatient world, where we feature wonderful curated content from throughout the week of all things cloud native, Kubernetes, things that make you go, what? Some big spenders. And usually we dive into a tool. And
yes, on the docket today, we have Neuvector, which I'm super excited to test out. Open sourced 12 days ago. So hot off the press. Yep. We have a little bit of breaking news, some marketing topics that we want to get into, and a little release from Red Hat. Microshift is on the docket. Thanks for joining, and hope you had a good week. Yes, big show today. I see a lot of technical topics. Very excited, and a big CVE that I forgot to mention. So all the links that you're going to see are going to be in the description on YouTube. You can check them all out there later. If you missed anything, if you missed a show, yeah, they'll all be there. So like, subscribe, and give us a shout if we missed anything. Really appreciate you joining. Steve, what's new with you? You have some stuff to get to later today, right?
I have some. Okay, let's do the pre-show. Shout outs to Container Solutions. Have a conference. They asked. We feel a kinship in a way with Container Solutions because of their WTF series. Generally, where their CEO Jamie Dobson drops the actual F-bomb several times throughout their mini conferences, which is refreshing. And they have what WTF is SRE in April, but specifically they said they have a call for papers that's ending in February 6th, I think. So they're looking for extra people to talk. SRE, which includes security and DevSecOps. Hence, they asked for the shout out. The other one was, I have a meetup in 2 hours time, which is a reboot of our Total Disaster, where Manuel Paes, who's the co-author of Team Topology's very famous book, how to create success. What did I just say?
No comment.
Slip of Freudian.
Yeah, a little Freudian slip. It's fine.
He's an attractive man. How to create success with DevOps deployment. So that is in 2 hours. So if you want to join me again in 2 hours, go find this meetup. It is the DevSecOps London Gathering in Meetup, and come to that meeting in 2 hours. So that is what I wanted to discuss real quick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we can get into the general news?
Yep. Let's do it.
I see DSO and Waleed are having a good fun.
We're getting heckled.
Fun with that. Yes.
I'm getting heckled.
All right. First one coming up is Microshift.
Da-da-da.
Yeah, this was announced actually over a week ago but hadn't talked about it, and I figured it was worth diving into because honestly, I don't know if it's worth it, but Microshift is basically Red Hat's version of K3s. And I put this link up, and we were chatting about, why has it taken, I guess, so long? K3s has been around for what, 3 years, basically, since preview, since beta, alpha, right? And I guess one of the biggest things is Red Hat has basically done all of the operationalizing behind K3s that you would need versus just deploying K3s and then setting up a monitoring agent and a logging agent and all that stuff to make sure it's there. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to testing this out. I think Steve might be worthwhile to screw with the Raspberry Pi clusters and get a test in.
Yeah, I do have. I have a spare Pi. I can run this on the same set. Maybe see how it goes.
I did find it funny that we condensed OpenShift into 160 megabit binary. Oh yeah, there it is. A relatively tiny executable, 160 megabits.
Relatively tiny.
I mean, it is in the scope of things, but it's all comparative, I guess, to what OpenShift really is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. In the vast scheme of things, that is tiny. Cool.
Any thoughts on the release?
I gotta try it because I would have never thought of OpenShift as lending itself to the edge. It's a little heavy, maybe, more enterprise focused. So if it's easy to fire up, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Well, they said they disabled almost all operators, and it's kind of the core piece, critical. Right? Yeah, you're just deploying the core components, and then you have some small agents to be able to connect stuff, using like ACM, advanced cluster management, and those pieces. But yeah, it's gonna be cool. I'm looking forward to testing it out too. So,
is there any of the security components in there? Hint, hint.
That's a good question. Well, so it's basically a core OS, but slimmed down. So it has the core operating system components from the security standpoint. And then the question is, if you're going to deploy ACS, if you would deploy probably the sensor, right? And then just feed information back. And the other question is, like, if you have a sensor, maybe you do a slimmed down version of the sensor. There's that question too.
Well, it also means rebuilding for ARM. Yes. So that there's a little bit of extra effort required there. That was always on the cards. Well, sorry, probably only me hassling them for that when we were there. So I don't know.
The conversation still happens.
Yeah, be good to see.
For sure.
Nice one. All right. So that'll be a tool time at some point.
Yes.
Right. Next on the list is the Daily Swig. I like the name of this. Report Swigger. That's why. European Commission launches new open source software bug bounty program. This is like a government-driven bug bounty program.
Yeah, I was very curious. I saw this pop up in my feed, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it because, Google and Apple have their big bug bounties, and then the EU basically said, "Hey, for open source, here we're going to do the same thing as the corporations." And I think to a certain extent, it makes sense. Like if you have hackers that are going to exploit vulnerabilities and then use it to gain some sort of financial gain, whether it's to sell information and all this stuff, like why don't you incentivize that talent for good? And you have to compete. I mean, it's kind of weird to a certain extent. It's like the government taking over gambling because the mobs run gambling. It's like, okay, well, we have to incentivize people to do it within the boundaries that we want them to, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
That's not the best analogy, but
it always comes down to the mob with you, doesn't it?
Yeah, mob and government are synonymous.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's a better than nothing for sure, right? Because that is an attack vector. Open source and supply chain, it's all over the place. Log4j probably prompted something like this, and among other things. But if you can find bugs and you can report them, that's cool. Interesting though, at the failed version of that aforementioned meetup last week, there was a guy who we were in conversation with, who is I think he's part of a team that's spearheading the concept of recognizing things like this. Like he would be really very much behind this, but would also be highlighting the fact that should you be an on the fence gray hat hacker, the value of a bug or any of these security vulnerabilities or findings to the dark web is still insanely more valuable. Like you would make more money selling the bug than you would by admitting to it. Now that's just about, he's looking to try and make it so you don't have to question your morals.
Mm-hmm.
But this is still an awesome step forward.
Definitely. It's really interesting that the EU, the European Union, is putting it on.
Yeah, we're pretty advanced over here.
I thought you're not part of that anymore, Steve. But all right, next one.
Low blow. All right. Yeah, you're right. I added this. Google details 2 0-day bugs reported in Zoom clients and MMR servers. Don't get all freaked out is basically the summary here, because these are these two here. Note 2021, right? The 9.8 and the 7.5. What's cool about this is that if you want to learn more about it, you can do that.
Yeah, the buffer overflow one is particularly nasty. They fixed it in November, Zoom's November update. So if you haven't updated Zoom since November, go do it. But yes, it's been fixed. They took a little while to release it, most likely so that people updated their Zoom before we said, hey, there's this huge issue with it. I find that kind of sketchy, but let's just say it's a good thing they fixed it. And it was a serious vulnerability. It was just remote code execution, and also it was very hard to see, from what I remember when I was reading the CVE. So very hard to catch.
Was it
very cool?
Was that the zero-click attack? Like that's really particularly bad if it doesn't require you to do anything.
Yeah, I don't think it was a zero-click, but I have to read it again. Okay.
Excellent. Good article. This one, the last one for our section, I believe, is really just cool.
Yeah.
Hey, the Kubernetes Part 1 documentary is out. Click through, and funny, I mentioned this to my wife. Hey, you know that word I keep saying that sounds like spaghettis? That there's a documentary about it. She's like, oh, is it on Netflix or something? I'm like, no, it's not. It's free. It would be heavily ironic if you had to pay to watch a documentary about an open source package.
Yeah. What'd you think about it? The Part 1.
I thought it was really good. I mean, somebody I know watched it and said, I didn't really learn anything new. It's like, it's not about you. It's about seeing the reactions and emotions of the founding fathers as they expressed the history of it. And I thought that was just very funny. Some really interesting quotes about it.
Yeah, I thought the Docker part too was very interesting. I think there's a minimization of Docker's role in it, because they talk about Google, having Kubernetes and orchestration for a while internally, right? And it really changed when Docker was able to create an app that brought it to your local workstation and made it actually useful and easy to use. And that was incredible. And the moment that happened, then Google realized that they had a little bit of an opportunity there, because they had already operationalized it internally. So it was interesting to see. Basically, you have all these technologies centered around Linux, containers, and then they just hit an apex where all of a sudden they start taking off, and you get that velocity and you get that buy-in, right? I thought that was pretty cool. Sucks for Docker though, but they pioneered a lot in the early days.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Well, I think credit, because I think Docker's gone a little wayward. I'm not going to, by the way, if anybody's thinking I'm going to show the documentary like we did last time, one of our other episodes, we showed the trailer. We're not doing that now. It's too long. It's like 30 minutes or something. But credit to Docker, because I think we judged Docker by its latter-day sins, or whatever I call it, as opposed to the amazing thing that it did.
Yes. And it's still doing some great things. In fact, we do have some breaking news for you. figured a good lead since we were talking about Docker.
Yeah. This thing. Now, I don't know how breaking this is. It's breaking to me. So, so I chucked it in at the last minute because I was amazed by what this says it does. The Docker Slam. Have you read it? There's a good little animation down here, actually, if it works. Maybe it's this one, but I'll put them both up. But the idea that it combines some open source tools that break down what is inside your container and just rips out whatever's unnecessary. And I'm like, holy crap! Like the example they've got in the video, if you click through this, actually you have to click through to see it. It takes. They're right. It starts off as 400 megabyte image, and then it ends at like nothing. And my brain just exploded because there's been a lot of times when I've tried to trim down my own, and it's hard. And yet I have very definitely stood up in front of a large crowd and said, "You really should minimize your Docker image." I'm not going to show you how. Bye. And, and so I think it's very cool, and I'm definitely promising to try that out on a series of different images that I've got in my locker, and then report back as to what kind of reductions in success I gain and whether they still work after you've ripped all the stuff out, because that's where my skeptic brain goes.
That'd be a good tool time if you want to offer that one up. Be awesome.
I'm offering it up. Put my backside on the line.
All right, into the crazy stuff. Now, I wanted to start off with not an article and more of a discussion, because this has come up a lot.
Okay,
DevSecOps as a term. What is it? Can you define it for me? Because I find there's just too much, let's say, random definition floating out there, and it's starting to become an industry word. It's like, oh, here's a DevSecOps expert. Like, so does that mean like you're a developer, operations, and security person?
It means like it means you should just pay me an absolute fortune. That's what it means. Hi, DevSecOps, right here.
Yeah. Is it the new full stack?
The backpack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the new full stack. Thanks. Oh, just off the back of the Docker Slim AI is the sort of commercial SaaS version of it. There is that is backed by a company. DevSecOps. I jokingly, I think even in a podcast, said DevSecOps is the self-penned invitation to the DevOps party, a manufactured portmanteau so that when DevOps have a bowling night, maybe we'll get invited to come along and do some bowling with them. Hoping that we'd figure it out and we'd learn what DevOps was through fly on the wall interactions and then somehow become part of that world. But the reality is that it's so much more complex, right? And I did do this, by the way. I cheated a little. I looked up DevSecOps defined to see how many articles are called exactly the same thing.
Can you click that? What is DevSecOps?
This one or this one or this one or this one?
The red hat one. Click the red hat one.
I already did the red hat one.
Oh, did you?
It made me laugh. Yeah, it's here. It's actually not bad. It's not bad.
Who wrote it? But there's no author.
Ajmal. So
yeah.
I was on board for a moment. Stands for whatever. An approach to culture automation platform design, I love that word, integrates security as a shared responsibility. All of that is cool until you get to the button. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
It sounds like yeah, that goes back to what you said about I'm DevSecOps. Like then it's like it's tangible.
Yeah. And
so that undermines the above.
It should be like integrate security into your DevOps like workflows, something like that, right?
Yeah, there are other examples. I clicked on a couple, like there's IBM.
The other thing too is DevSecOps is not specific to Kubernetes, even though we tend to think of it like that. I'd say it's more specific to containers as a general principle.
So one of these ones, I think it's CrowdStrike, heavily aligns it in this with containers, leveraging containers.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm sure if I click that, that takes me to their cloud native security solution or something. But the idea, there was so one of the quotes from the documentary, actually, it said containerization integrated dev and ops, because you're sending the environment along with the program. So suddenly dev and ops get combined, and I think by the same notion that integrates InfoSec and AppSec.
Yep.
So suddenly you've got to play along.
And really, the developers are going to define the tools that you use, as much as operations would like to say, hey, here's an environment, all that stuff. If the developers find a faster way to get things done, they're going to drag everybody with them, I find.
Yeah, that's true. Totally. Oh yeah, drag is a great way of putting it too.
Yeah, once you get the developers on board and they say, hey, like I really like this tool, it's making my life so much faster. Oh, I can, produce and push and publish code and test so much faster locally, and then then working in a virtual machine where I have to go talk to operations all the time. Well, yeah, the boss is going to say, okay, work with containers, and then operations figure out how to support them, right? And so that conversation needed to happen. And then security comes in. Are you a blocker or not, right? Anyways, yeah, it's defining DevOps again. It's once you get into DevSecOps, you always end up back at what is DevOps.
You do. So let me roll down. There's a good bit here you're gonna like. So there's all this stuff, right? And then but don't forget DevSecOps. Ta-da!
Yeah.
And I didn't like this at all. So DevSecOps integrates automated security into every part of DevOps culture, tooling, and processes. No, it doesn't. That again makes it sound like it's automation and tools. And it isn't. It's just it's all this again.
Culture and tooling.
Yeah,
but there's not
culture, tooling, and processes.
It's culture and tooling. It's just people try to be very specific and say like their DevSecOps is the way DevSecOps is. No.
Yeah.
You're going to have 5, 10, 15 different teams, all with different pipelines. Security is going to look different to each one. So
yeah,
it's very broad. Anyways, I think the fact that it's super broad means everybody tries to shove their definition in, and that could be, it's a big WTF, mate.
I was hoping that one, which is like a GitHub repo that doesn't seem to be pushing any kind of commercial agenda, was going to be the one that I was going to read and go, there it is. No, but no. Once again, disappointed.
All right, we gotta speed this up so we can get to some Neuvector.
All right. Yeah. That's the most important thing. All right, here's a boring article.
Yes, Red Cross hack. They basically came out and they said that they knew that people were in their system. They're getting information basically from some of the most vulnerable people and looking to sell it on the internet. And so they're just basically pleading not to. They've had access. How big the breach is unknown, but a lot of it is for selling people's data on the internet. And yeah,
there you go.
Big WTF.
That is bad.
500,000 people.
Vulnerable people got it bad enough.
Yeah.
They think they're just medically vulnerable, and now they're technologically vulnerable. Jeez.
Yeah.
All right. Next, this is a weird one. So this is in WTF, which it might have been in Big Spenders if we had a clue, I think.
Yes, and I think we put it there because we missed the release of this.
But I can't find proof of existence. I caught a rumor that there's another supply chain security company called Legit Security, which I also thought was a pretty stupid name for a security company.
Come on,
because it's a pretty legit name. Seriously, we're legit. It's definitely not that hacker. What's that company that we reported on that is like the nation state hacking that created its own fake security company, so security people would apply for jobs and then find out that they're doing malicious things. It might be that one, but it's like they came out of stealth, so they exist. This is what I heard. But if you go to like Crunchbase or you go to any of the things that might prove their existence, there's nothing. It's like they have no money at all. And if you try to just use Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever you want to do, and just look up legit security seed funding, legit security out of stealth. It's just like, those two words, legit and legit security together, are really overloaded.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find anything about them. I just went to legitsecurity.com and went, okay, so they have a webpage, and they're doing software supply chain, and they have very cool graphs and pictures, and they spent some money on their website. So
very
neat.
Yeah, all I think about is if you've ever seen Benchwarmers, when the guy comes in and says, I am 12, and he pays off the umpire. That might be a reference that nobody understands, but it's a good one. It's
I gotta do my homework.
Legit. Yeah. All right. So we have some pretty big Linux CVE stuff. Or are we doing big spender first?
Let's do. We
CVE?
don't really do. No, we should do big spender first.
Okay.
We have the wrong order. Yeah, big spender first.
Spending money.
All right, let me find it.
Big acquisition coming up.
Which one? Am I going to do this in the right order? I'm just going to do it in the order of the one I have up.
Yeah.
And that was Megaliths. So Megaliths joins Weaveworks to bring policy to GitOps, which is actually super cool because Weaveworks, I think I did a Flux demo of Weaveworks' SaaS, free SaaS thing. And it's like Argo CD, or it's like, it's a continuous delivery system, and a bunch of other actually pretty extensive things. Weaveworks, Alexis Richardson coined the phrase GitOps. He's the one who defined what GitOps processes meant. So he's kind of instrumental. I think he was even a CNCF founder. So he's kind of a big deal, has many leather-bound books, and finally added security to the Weaveworks portfolio. So policy guardrails, it's all OPA based. I don't think it says that, but I think Megaliths it's all OPA based policy as code. So that's pretty cool.
We call this trusted delivery.
Yeah.
It's an interesting term. I kind of like that.
And he's good at coining phrases, so that's probably going to become a thing. TD, trusted delivery. CI/CD TD.
Oh, please no.
So that's a cool one. Pleased for them. I had heard a rumor it was going to happen, so that's pretty rocking.
Ooh, any other rumors?
What was the other one? I got to find Polar.
Seed funding, yeah. So we have one seed funding. I think it was $8.5 million for Polar.
Oh, I kicked myself out of the stream.
Yeah,
all right.
Polar Security.
Polar Security, data security and compliance. Yeah, these are pretty vague terms, but they do say cloud native. So they win. They get to be on the show. Unmanaged data follow it. So it seems like a data focused security platform. They got $8.5 million. Probably out of Israel. I didn't even look. Just have to assume. All good security companies come out of Israel. Yeah. There you go. Oh, there.
Yep. Very neat.
Cloud data very cool. So,
a platform that's going to be a huge space in the next years as we get, petabytes and petabytes of data built up from all of our IoT devices and things like that. Data is going to be a huge money-making landscape.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. All right. Oh, well, hopefully we'll see more of them in the future.
DevSecOps approved TD workflow.
Shut up.
Oh, will each try to torture us today?
Okay, that's big spenders done, I think.
Yeah, we're on to some dangerous stuff.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Yes, one big CVE before we get into the demo.
CVE 2022-0185. This is another one of those priority high. Yes, I think it's only a 7.8 CVSS. I don't know if it says it here, but it is a. You can see all the packages. Probably other links to it, but anyway, there we go. It's a, guess what it is? It's an overflow. It's a buffer overflow. It's always a buffer overflow.
I thought it was always DNS.
It's or that, yeah. It's one of two categories for these. But if it's Linux, it's all because it's C. It's C programming, so it's always going to be a buffer overflow. Heap overflow bug in legacy parse param. It's already fixed. It's in quite a few though versions. Like I think it was a check-in from April. I actually said, okay, this self plug. I wrote a thing when I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Linux kernel, I read all about it. It was checked in April, either 2020 or 2019. It's been around for a while, so there's a lot of versions of Ubuntu that are in it. But nevertheless, right? If you're in there was a discussion around containerization in Kubernetes and whether you could exploit it, and for the most part, you can't, because you can't get access to it. Except, and that was when I started going through, like in the disclosure. Well, you need cap sysadmin, and in the disclosure, if you read the actual details of it, which I'm not going to go to, they actually tell you, oh, you can, if you don't have cap sysadmin, you just need cap sysadmin in the namespace you're in, and you can use unshare or unshare with this specific handy parameter to jump and add cap sysadmin to your local within the container. Basically, switch namespaces in Presto, and there's a little capture of. You can do a con cluster. You could do it. I could have demoed it now. You can do a kubectl run Ubuntu 2004, do an app update, install the utils for pscap, and then check what you can do. And yeah, you're root because you're running out of the box, right? And then you run an unshare-r and ding dong the little your root with full. Now you don't have to even specify what capabilities, and suddenly you've got cap sysadmin. So if you do know how to exploit that, now you can do it. And you can use the buffer overflow to kind of like there was one earlier where you could just blow yourself out of the container because just make Linux very upset.
Yeah, and realistically, if you have SecOps or SE Linux or any sort of controls around your processes, you should be fine.
You are exactly fine. The thing is, and this is what statement I made, and I think it's true, but who knows, right? I often don't specify SecComp, and I think it's going to be on by default as of, what is it, Kubernetes 1.2.3. Waleed will know if he's still with us. But people will just drop all capabilities in their security context, like yay, and then they'll go, yeah, well, I don't need SecComp.
Yeah, we want it to run right out of the gate, right?
Right.
That's always the balance.
Yeah. So then, so I just kind of was saying it's really easy to do it. So. And then I'm not going to scroll down. I do the usual self plug of our own product and say we have policies that actually already check for these things, so just use it and you're good.
Yep.
Blah blah blah.
Yes.
Yeah. Me. And that is the only one we were going to do. So now we're almost on the half hour.
It's time.
We are.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Yes, tool time.
Exciting.
You know what that means? That means Neuvector's on the.
Means the demo gods are firing up a
line.
lightning storm for you. Yeah.
No.
You might notice.
Right.
I was gonna say you might notice Mr. Foster is in a new habitat. He has got a new background. The hat's at a different spot. He's all grown up now and moved out of his parents' basement.
Yes. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I've been waiting to move in. COVID kind of put a damper on my move out things, but yeah, it's nice. Downtown Toronto. If anybody comes to Toronto, let me know. Dinner's on me.
Okay. We're going to put a special bookmark on YouTube for that statement.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I'm cutting that part of the video out, and then it just tool time starts right now.
Yeah.
All right. So Neuvector 12 days ago, and we had Bastian on the week before.
Yeah.
Right? So he basically came on. Great Ranche demo. Go check it out by Bastian. And was like, oh yeah, we plan to open source this, kind of nonchalant at the end of the demo. And then just on a Tuesday, they just go, boom, here's Neuvector, open source.
Yeah, heard it hit.
So we had to check it out. Go to the Neuvector repository on GitHub. It has all the information to get started. So if you get in here, I'll tell you what to do and what not to do. There's a couple of things that I didn't really like about this setup. So shocking. I actually like READMEs. They're nice. But this doesn't really tell me much. It basically just says, hey, the container images for the preview version can be pulled from the new Docker Hub registry. Basically, if you look at the YAMLs, they had a private registry, which makes sense. That was specific to Neuvector. And then they just took the images, split the build pipeline so that there are images in Docker, right? So all you need to do is just use those YAMLs and then change the repository you're pulling from. It's fine. But don't kind of go through that. It's way easier just to come to the docs page instead of the README, and you can go to installation. But basically, if you're at basics and you want to deploy on Kubernetes, it's very simple. Copy paste into CLI, and I have this running on GKE for this demo, and it worked completely fine. So they even have the sample PSP with a bunch of notifications that, hey, PSPs are being deprecated. Yeah, there you go, right there. So yeah, create a namespace, set all of your admission controllers, your CRDs, create all your cluster rules and role bindings. It does need a lot of permissions. So obviously it's a security tool. It's doing scanning. It's doing network management as well, because Neuvector claims to be a true layer 7 firewall. And that was one of the capabilities I never got to test out while I was playing around with it. So Bastian, come on and show me these firewall capabilities, especially like some of the WAF stuff is really interesting. But yeah, so sample output, it'll just come all up, worked fine. I didn't need to create remote multi-cluster management service, but I'm sure this is going to come in handy, especially once the Ranche UI gets integrated and you're going to have Neuvector, like one hub with the sensors everywhere to pull all the information in. I'm sure that kind of plays in there. But yeah, kubectl apply, basically all the manifests, and it worked great. Since I'm on GKE, it just gave me an IP and a load balancer there. And if you guys want to go crash it, feel free. Yeah. Ooh. So you come into this setup. Now I have Weave socks running on it. Again, you can go to this IP if you want to give me some traffic and screw around with it. Go ahead, Steve. See what you can get. Yeah. Deep packet introspection. I'm kind of curious to see how deep, because the other thing too is if you're going to say that, you're also putting a pretty taxing load on the node. But the layer 7 firewall and the packet introspection is kind of their differentiator. It's one of their claims to fame. So I'm really kind of curious, because that's the one thing I didn't have time to figure out, and that's probably their biggest selling point. So we need Bastian back.
I'm on that site now, and I'm buying some socks.
Nice. All right. So coming from a, let's say, StackRox background, Steve, when you get in here, what's the first thing you think to check out? What's the things that pop out at you? Because you have, network activity, assets, policies, security risks, notifications, and settings.
I would go to risks. That'd be my first
security
thing.
Risks. And then exactly. And now you have your pretty much kind of the basis, right? You go to your vulnerabilities.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right. Because it's your core, like lowest level. Hey, here are your containers. Here's what you're vulnerable to. And we can see all the CVEs that they're published. Now I installed this and then ran a scan, and it was done in 10 minutes. Basically, I had all this information. So pretty quick. Very nice. Okay. PDF has an assets view. The PDF is actually really nice and sleek.
Oh yeah.
So I'll give them a shout out for that. I like sleek documents. I don't like it when it's just a bunch of tables just chucked onto a page. So very nice. And yeah, I think what's really cool too is we can see the different scores, V2, V3. And we can go to the vulnerability profile as well. Now this is a new one.
So what does that do?
This is an interesting, reported within a certain amount of days. I think I just clicked on something and I learned some new functionality.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, so
I'm not sure I understand it.
Yeah, vulnerability profile entry is added successfully. This is a new one. I'm not completely sure that the flow is here, but we have vulnerabilities, vulnerability profile, compliance, and compliance profile. Yeah. Now, okay, so it looks like basically,
You created those, right?
well, I'm clicking the vulnerability and hitting accept. So I'm wondering 42384. Yeah, 42384. So I'm kind of curious.
Does that mean you acknowledged it or something?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what this is trying to accomplish here. Add images. So I'm basically saying, hey, there's a vulnerability, and here are the images and namespaces that it's affecting. I don't know, maybe I'm just misreading this, or maybe I'm missing sort of the workflow here, but not completely sure what that workflow is like.
Yeah, I'm curious if compliance has like PCI or HIPAA or any of those kind of things in it.
So that was one thing that I thought was pretty cool. Moving on was you have this compliance filter. So let's say we need to, I don't really care about GDPR, for example. I can go and click, okay, I want HIPAA and PCI.
PCI is pretty.
Right. And it's cool too, because it just labels all the regulations. So, if I just want NIST or if I don't want NIST or whatever, I could just kind of ignore it. And the nice thing too about all this is you can pick off sort of the big ones quickly, right? Like if you have an all configured, right? These are the big ones. Ensure the container host has been hardened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, very vague. Thanks for that compliance description. Ensure Docker is up to date. Hey, these are some pretty basic things that that you can bite off really easily. So I do like this all section. And also the system containers thing is pretty good because that, let's say sometimes the application platform you're using isn't always the most secure. So you would want to know, hey, I'm running on OpenShift, or hey, I'm running on RKE, or hey, I'm running on GKE. What are the issues with the actual service? And then what are the issues that I need to focus on? So it's really kind of helping to just show one, are the people I'm paying to manage the platform doing a good job securing it? And then two, what are the things that I really only need to worry about? So I do like that aspect as well.
Okay.
So policy, the one thing that I found,
sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to save anything. So the admission controller was part of the deployment, and I can say, allow specific deployments in specific namespaces. I can just say, hey, no deployments in this namespace. It's, your basic policy engine. What I was kind of missing here is like, there's no default policies that are recommended.
Oh, did you make those?
These two. Yeah, user created.
Oh, okay.
I just kind of.
You just did one. Oh, so they're giving you basically, they're putting a wide open admission controller and saying, hey, now you can create your own policies if you add, I guess, right?
Yeah, and so there are all of these sock shop apps, and so what I can do is I can say, hey, like that's a group that I want to look at and apply policy to those specific apps, which I kind of like, right? Like you could say, hey, this is a group, this is my crown jewels, my database, or my front end. Like maybe something that's stateless, that's your front end, doesn't have a lot of information, need low impact. Okay, we'll group that as a group and then apply specific policies to it. I like that aspect to it. The one thing I was just kind of shocked about was, and maybe I'm missing it, I feel like there should be some default policies already configured in here.
Well, maybe they're just expecting you to go through. I know it does. Like you're assuming a lot about somebody's knowledge of security by giving them a clean sheet, giving them security enablement, but no actual security.
Yeah, it's the tool without like the expert opinion on what you should do. And I mean, the compliance aspect is pretty useful, right? Hey, do these things. Here's the remediation. It would just be nice if you said, hey, like here's a policy for this remediation. Do you want to warn on it? Right. And so just a pretty clear, hey, here's this policy. Here's an easy fix that you can just click and implement. But I don't see that workflow. So I might be missing something. Bastian, come tell me where I missed it. But yeah. So again, network rules. And we can create rules. Maybe so these are basically the network policies that are configured.
Those are the ones that were part of your existing installation.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they're all. Yeah, because SockShop has. Does it actually have Kubernetes network rules in it? I didn't realize it did.
Yeah. Okay. And then this is to add a rule so we can. It's basically adding a network policy. So, from a specific group to a specific group. Now, Okay, so this is really interesting. Instead of using Kubernetes specific things, I understand why they didn't do it. Okay, because they're a container platform service, right? So we're thinking of it in Kubernetes. They think of it as like, hey, you have 3 Lambda services or 3 container services, and you want to group them and then apply a rule to it. That makes sense because now it's to and from those groups. So like logically,
Okay.
you have to start thinking of containers in groups instead of like an individual service like we would in Kubernetes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We're not constrained by the
Yeah,
Kubernetes objects.
exactly. And so if you have all these containers, then you just say, hey, here's the group, here's the front end. I want to make sure that this doesn't talk to this, or the service doesn't talk to this service.
Okay.
That makes sense. And then you can apply it, and you have a deny rule as well.
Okay. That's funny. Interesting.
Yeah.
Aqua had a notion of creating abstractions at the container level, not the Kubernetes level, which was interesting.
Yeah. So these are security events, level error. So if you have specific errors, it says user created. Kind of curious. I didn't create these.
So I stopped smashing on your interface.
Sorry.
Let me know if you want to get to the network activity, and I'll.
Oh, I thought you said me stop smashing the interface. Yeah.
No, I did.
Oh yeah, there
so
we go. Look at all that traffic.
I'm all over it.
Yeah, we have some.
Huh. No, immediately what I like about it is that it almost like if you're looking at like a chemical molecular design, it makes all the things equidistant so that like very nicely so that you can see all the paths.
Yeah.
So at a glance, it looks very appealing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious if we start to group things, if it applies to groups.
Oh, do you see the groups visually?
Yeah, I don't really want to screw around in the middle of this because I haven't tested it out, but it is something I would like to play through. Yeah, it's like, yeah, so we can sort by namespaces and groups. So I don't think it default sorts groups, but if we create the groups and then search for it, it'll bring it all together, which I think is really useful because, I mean, groups can be by security. It can also be by organization, right? Hey, here's my data science group. Here's all of the stuff that they're working with. So I like the aspect of be able to group things by organizational structure, and by say maybe security context for your containers.
I like I'm always a sucker for some like really clever security abstractions.
Yeah.
But then sometimes my brain goes back to, and I feel positive you're going to say you didn't have time to look at it. Is there an API that when I start creating some of these abstractions, I can get them out and put them back? You know what I mean? Because that was sometimes when you get when you're in the heat of tool design, you create cool stuff, but you forget to actually make an API. Because somebody, if I created things here, I probably would want them as code somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, like if you're changing these rules, yeah, I guess that's the tough thing. Like you create a group, right? And then you create some rules for it. How do you export that? Is it easy? If I go create another Neuvector deployment, can I just import those rules? I'm sure that this has been thought about and I'm missing something.
Yeah, that's what we need Bastian here. Yeah. Oh, that looks good. So it's got all the enterprise integrations one might expect.
Yeah.
Webhooks, what are they for?
So there's export policy only. So I'm sure that there's some aspect of exporting policy and dropping it in. So like,
cool.
Import configuration as standalone cluster. I think it's there.
Yeah, we could probably burp suite that and figure out what the API call was, or look at the docs.
Yeah, no.
Hey,
last thing on network activity is it does have the little cool snapshot in case you didn't know how to take a screenshot.
In case you're using this advanced security tool, but you have no idea how to just do a screenshot.
Hey,
awesome.
And it's got notifications, security events, risk reports. So it's got all your big issues. Right.
All right.
Base OS vulnerabilities, medium vulnerabilities.
That's a good
you
list.
Can export individual ones as CVE, CSVs, or you can export the entire thing as like a PDF or a CSV as well. So very cool.
Okay.
Deep packet simulated. Yeah.
Well, considering I used to consider simulate it. Yeah, that's simulate what?
Can I? What's this? Oh, just zoom in. So that's just
Reset.
yeah.
Find hidden.
It's
What are we
to
doing?
hide stuff. Refresh. Yeah, there's no simulation that I see, but
Interesting.
yeah, I know we're running out of time and you got to run. Is there any big things that you want to see quickly?
No, it looks so. Considering Neuvector's been around for like 5 years, like I feel like they kicked off around the dawn of containers, as well as a lot of the other security companies. It looks really cool. Like the dashboard, looks like it's using a different front end technology than some of the other things you clicked. But what's its core competency? Because I always thought you're right. Maybe that's what we're missing. Like under the WAF and all those other networky security things that we haven't tapped into. It's not obvious if I just was uninitiated as a self-starter like you are. Where's my time to value? And like, where should I focus?
Yeah. I think
that's why we need Bastian here to
there's the security risk. So you're going vulnerability and compliance, but then I feel like the assets is one that we undervalued, right? Like you could link up a registry. Okay. I'm assuming you can do checks and scans at an earlier stage and not just at the cluster level. We can look at system components. You can look at containers individually and then get a little bit of context about it, right? ID, base OS, privilege false, network mode. And then we can look at each container individually, right? The process ID and statistics. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it is pretty interesting. I feel like this is one thing that I need to dig in a lot more. So if either we get Bastian back on here, or maybe it's worth doing a V2 after I figure out a little bit more about the data loss prevention.
Let's do. Oh yeah, that would be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, data loss prevention and web application firewall as well.
How do you install a WAF sensor? What is it?
I never got to that part. So
okay, all right, awesome. Because WAF sensors are generally agents, right? So you would have to deploy an agent a little bit like lots of things use agents. Yeah. And what's the technology behind the agent? All that would be fascinating stuff for us to dig into. So cool. I think we'll do both. Dive in a little bit further if you have time. And now that this is going to be on YouTube, I'll tag it and send it to Bastian and say, all right, you're on, buddy. When can you come? And then you'll have good questions and we'll have an expert.
Yeah, I would love to see the walkthrough because I'm a little biased in how I navigate tools. So it's I
tell you, like, because I mean, coming from okay, I know how to navigate Aqua. I know how to navigate StackRox. I now know how to navigate Prisma and Twistlock's interface, or formerly Twistlock, or Compute. And it's like, and they do have similar things, right? Like I didn't look at that and go game changing. I went, yeah, that looks like all the other ones.
Because it makes sense. Like you want to stay within the same context and have your unique spin. So very cool. Thanks, Willie. Appreciate it.
And it's amazing that it was free. So I think that's the best free thing I've ever seen.
Yes. Agreed. Open source. Cool. Check it out. Follow the docs. Don't go through GitHub. The docs are very in-depth. And yeah, shout out for them dropping it. They got acquired in November and 2 months later it was open sourced. So
that's amazing. Very
cool. Any other last minute shout outs, Steve, before we let you get to your other commitments?
I do have a shout out, but I'm going to save it until. Do I save it till next week or do I not save it till next week? Do you have?
Save it till next week. Now keep it interesting. We got a cliffhanger on this episode.
Yeah, but I might get in trouble. That's why. Let me just see if it comes up. Yeah, if it doesn't, then screw it. Let me just see if it's here. Nah, forget it. Forget it. What I'm part of running a conference like the WTF one
Mhm.
at the end of March. It's even sooner than that one, and I was supposed to plug the CFP there, but I forgot. So,
Next week.
next week. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining. Next week, we're going to have Docker Slim. Is that...
I will have one of two demos. It might be Docker Slam, and it might be another thing I'm not going to tell you about yet because
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's releasing in time.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned. Thanks for joining. Have a good weekend. I'm your host, Mike Foster.
Steve Jaguar.
Take care.